Because at the end of the day, I mean, I do get off on being thanked. It's nice to walk into any situation and be the hero. It's a good feeling to be able to say that you're selfless. And I think that this is something that I really took from AmeriCorps, was that the happiest that I've ever been, it wasn't, although backcountry was really great and I loved, being in the woods and waking up every day and, doing something so freeing, but it was still selfish. It was still for me. And the happiest I've ever been was working for AmeriCorps, but for the South Alabama AmeriCorps emergency response team. And that was because each day I woke up and, got to do volunteer work for 8 hours. And it was great. And I'm not sure if it made me happy because I inherently enjoy helping people, or because I enjoy the concept of being a people person and helping people, and that's how I want to be identified in society, as a selfless person. I'm not going to even really attempt to unravel that ball of yarn, because it seems, to be completely intertwined with the constructs of who I am as a person, and I don't want to know if I'm that flawed, if, whether I really am doing all these selfless things for selfish reasons. So I'd prefer to leave that one alone for the moment and not even entertain it. I definitely, am happy doing this job. I really hope that med school or whatever I do pans out. I just want to be able to have a career for, 10 or 20 years and really enjoy it and feel like I have a sense of purpose. This bathtub is getting quite uncomfortable. I don't think, my mom the other day said something really hurtful. She was talking about how she thinks that I would be a terrible stay-at-home mom, and publicly I berated her for it. I don't think that that's something that you should tell your daughter. Just in general, I think that being a mother is something that we kind of view as innate, and I definitely view as innate, and I don't want to be, to be implied that I can't do something that should be ingrained within my system. But at the same time, I agree with her, because I would be terrible. I would go nuts. They would come home to find, the walls painted a different color every night, and I think it's because I flounder when I'm bored, mentally, physically, whatever. I don't do well. If it were up to me, if I didn't have something to wake up for every day, I would be in my pajamas eating Haagen-Dazs and be fine with it. I need something to get me out of bed. Or else I'll sit and watch TV. And although it is quite entertaining nowadays, I've got to say. I mean, informative. I could have read Einstein's theory of relativity and, the whole paper published with it, but instead I just absorbed it from the Discovery Channel. And it's fascinating. I mean, I'm not obviously sure of the sources, whether it's reliable information, but I mean, what isn't able to be fact-checked nowadays? Today I learned from a brief 30 minutes that Einstein's theory of relativity predicted that black holes puncture the fabric of time and space, and if I'm really doubtful of that, I can always Google it. I'm not sure, though, whether I'm definitely not smart enough. If one thing I've learned this semester, it's that I'm not smart enough to even entertain, such lofty concepts as general relativity, but it just, to me, defines the limits of the mind. Never before have I been so aware, cognizant of the limits of my mind. When I was maybe in like the first grade, and I looked back, looking back, I assumed that education correlated to the increasing mental ability. I assumed because, by the time I got to the second grade, I could spell more words, and by the time I got to the fifth grade, I could do solid long division or whatever it was. I assumed that it would always be like that, and that each year would bring increasing mental abilities. And it was such a shock to find this place in the end of high school, the beginning of college, when your brain doesn't really develop an aptitude, a capacity to learn any better than it already has. It's sort of, the growth is stunted, and it's up to me now, and it's been so humbling to confront these like limits of my mental aptitude, and especially in this Beckett class, which has really made it very clear that I'm not nearly as smart as I believe myself to be. But to think that someone like Einstein was able to describe something that he had never seen and could never see. And I mean, you can't even, black holes are invisible. We can't even find definitive proof of them, concrete evidence, because they are by definition invisible. I mean, it's amazing to, believe that in the early 1900s, 1912 or whatever it was, he described them mathematically. Mathematics, which we pretty much take as true nowadays. And